Okay, fine.
Mm.
Okay, Rohan, welcome to Sunrise Radio. Thank you for doing this interview. I'm so excited to be chatting to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
so
not at
excited
all.
to be
So,
chatting to you and so excited to be coming to London soon also.
that was going to be my next question. After how long are you coming to London? Because I saw you,
After,
like we just spoke, 7 years ago.
yeah, to perform, it's been 7 years. This is my first time performing solo in London.
Ooh,
I've been fortunate
London
to come
shows and
with
all.
AIB. London shows and all, London shows because, I was like, where can I find the largest Indian audience?
Oh,
And I was like, of course, the natural answer is London.
of course.
So, right, there we go. And as we know, as an Indian, the quintessential London summer experience is to get into central London and spend more time with 150 other Indian people. This is a
Absolutely.
quintessential London summer experience. I'm
I
looking
think
forward
after
to
you
having
do
it.
it 2 or 3 times, you'll then be doing it the other way around because I am heading to India for the summer
Oh yeah, fantastic.
to
And I
escape
believe
that.
I believe at this point it is probably warmer in London than it is here in Mumbai.
It's just not equipped for this kind of weather. And as a proper Delhi girl, I am suffering because I've had to buy one of those portable air conditions and it doesn't do the
Yeah.
job at all. So it is
No,
very
it does
hot.
not.
Heat
Yes.
wave, amber warnings, carry lots of t shirts and shorts, definitely.
That is the
But
plan, which is a strange piece of advice to give somebody coming to London, especially an Indian person coming to London usually. We're like, oh, make sure you carry your shorts and t-shirts.
yes, it is very strange. But listen, this is very strange weather. Like the Britishers who've lived here and grown up here don't know what to do. Uh,
It's almost like scientists were warning us for years and years and years that this was going to happen.
yeah.
Like, what a crazy coincidence,
And
right?
then it happened.
I know, what a crazy coincidence.
Okay, so I want to throw it back for our listeners a little bit,
Mhm.
because you have gone from engineering to stand-up comedy,
Yes.
and that's firstly quite a transition. And we have a lot of young listeners who I'm guessing now are also going to be super enthusiastic about maybe taking up comedy, or
Uh-huh.
wanting to follow that path. So tell me about that. Tell me about like your journey from engineering to stand-up, and do you remember the moment when you were like, I'm really funny. This could be my career.
Well, I mean, those were two separate moments actually.
Okay.
I'm really funny was the first time I went to an open mic and I got my first ever laugh. I was like, more than I'm really funny. As comedians, we seek validation. It was more like, oh my god, yay, I am funny. What
Yeah.
a relief to find that out.
Yeah.
But it took a few years. So between engineering and stand up, there was also a brief pit stop in 2007 in what I thought would be the future field of Indian television news. Um,
Which was?
I know that in 2007, I thought I was going to be a broadcast journalist. And I had the great privilege of working for a gentleman that you all know by the name of Mr. Arnab Goswami.
Ooh,
Um,
oh my
I
God, we're
know,
getting controversial
I
already.
know.
So
It's not
early in
even
the
about
interview.
controversial so much as what better grounding could I possibly have for a career in comedy
Yeah.
than a year and a half working for that fine gentleman.
Yeah.
But I went from there to comedy, where I worked in journalism and I worked as a freelance writer. And since you mentioned young people might want to get into comedy,
Yeah.
I definitely held on to my day job for the first sort of few years where I was open micing. And it
Hmm.
was only, and this is because, you also have to make sure you placate Indian parents.
Yeah.
So when it got to a point where I could show for at least a year that, hey, look, the money I'm making off of comedy right now is exactly the same or a little more than my monthly salary slip from this job. That was when they were like, okay, fine, go forth and prosper.
So when you
And
were
that's when that
working
happened.
with Arnab, you were actually doing news. It wasn't funny news.
No, I was doing so I was working in the features team, but no, it wasn't funny news. I was just doing I was actually an auto journalist.
Oh, I was
Still one of the
planning to
best
see you do
jobs.
serious news actually.
Oh my God. I mean, I do have training in journalism. I went to journalism school, so I did get training in serious news.
Okay.
And but I realized after looking at back then, having the fortune to work with some very courageous reporters, and to just see the work of people from my journalism school who went on to in different fields become incredibly dedicated, courageous reporters. I think I just had this honest chat with myself where I realized that I did not have that degree of dedication to the craft of reporting. And so I
Yeah.
moved away from serious news to features news, where I was like, okay, if I can't do this justice, then I don't want to do like a half-ass job at
So
this. And
you were
that's what.
honest to yourself. But so engineering, and you mentioned journalism. So tell me
Mhm.
about that. What happened in the middle? You started the engineering degree and
Yes.
switched.
Another moment of radical honesty with myself, where I
Yeah.
was 2 years into the engineering degree. And I had this moment where I looked at my books and I went, none of this is making sense to me. And at the same time, I looked around and I was with some brilliant minds who were taking to it extremely intuitively, who, or when they put in the hard work, could make sense of it. And I
Yeah.
just remember having this moment of, I do not think this is a thing I can do for the rest of my life. And if I do, I don't think, and just given my general incompetent feeling at it, I think
Yeah.
that if I do stick with it, I'm not sure I'm going to like the person I become. And so I took a call, which again, for an Indian kid, is quite a terrifying thing to do, which is where I dropped out of engineering college, which for an
Ooh,
Indian child to
I
say,
should
oh my
interview your
God,
parents to know how they felt about
you know
that.
what? You should, because they were absolutely incredible about it, to their credit.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there was obviously a stormy couple of months where they were upset because
Mm.
you know how it is in India, right? Like when you drop out of college, there's like a social stigma to it. They knew that, people were
And
probably
मेरा
behind
बेटा
their back.
engineer है. I mean, how can you
Right, they've
top
already gone
that?
and said that, and
Yeah.
now they know that there'll be like neighbors and people will sort of be like, "Oh, do you know their child dropped out and couldn't hack it and all of
Yeah.
those things?" So there was obviously a couple of stormy weeks, but then to their credit, they were the first people to come to me also and sit down and be like, "Okay, if your passion is clearly in the creative arts, is the sense that we get from everything you see in your life, then please pursue it like with a happy heart. And why don't you go do journalism or go do one of those things and see." So full credit and love to them for just really being incredible parents about it. And I'm also really happy that all these years later, I've had some success in comedy, and I get to repay that
You're
faith
being
and be like,
modest,
you
but
know
yeah.
what? No, your kid did appear in a newspaper for being
Yes.
in comedy and has had some coverage for being, and I'm happy that I get to repay that.
Okay, so that's great. So you had their support, hence made the move engineering to journalism to news, and then came the moment when you started doing open mics. But open mics in India, this was at a time when it wasn't really a thing. Like comedy in India is fairly new, isn't it?
I mean, comedy in India has been around for a while, right? Like we can't, at the end of the day,
I
like
mean, like stand up
there's
comedy,
people
like
like
open
no,
mics.
like people like Johnny Lever was selling out stadiums for years and years. But yeah, like
Yeah.
a sort of like just urban daily open mic culture was not really a thing.
Yeah.
And there, I think full credit to Veer Das, who of course all your listeners probably know about, the
Yes.
OG of this particular scene, because he was the first person who sort of went, okay, there are individual comedians, and again, gotta point out the OG brilliance of people like whether
Yeah.
it's Johnny Lever or so many other comedians and regional language comedians also. Let's not forget, right? There's Gujarati comics, Marathi comics, all sorts of
Yeah.
comics. But to sort of do this sort of English Hindi urban adult scene where he's like, there'll be open mics at bars and there'll be comedy in bars and clubs. That was something that he made a very conscious effort to do.
Yeah.
And the first open mic, I think the first open mic I did, the first open mic Varun Grover did, the first open mic Tanmay did, the first open mic so many people did would
Yeah.
be open mics that Veer organized, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
So in that sense, all credit to him. And if you're the sort of listener who thinks that stand-up comedy has spoiled the society, in that case, it's his fault, guys. It's his fault. This is nothing to do with me. This is Veer
So is
Das's fault,
Veer
and pin it
almost
all
like
on
a
him.
mentor to you? Yeah.
Oh, 100%. He's always been incredibly giving. He's always up for a chat. He's always like, if he sees me post something or do something, he'll always reach out and be like, "Oh, hey, I did this last year, or I'm also experimenting with something like this. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I
And he
think you
just
can
did
do."
his shows at Soho Theatre, which of course we all went and
Yeah,
watched and loved and laughed our way through it. And now you're going to be up next. So the bar is set high.
the bar is set high. I know Veer is a tough act to follow, as always, but no, full credit to him. Nothing but love. He's been extremely generous
Yeah.
with his time and just his mentorship overall.
Okay. So it started off with, like you said, open mics organized by him. And then came about AIB.
Again, before AIB, I actually briefly worked with Veer because he had this very beautifully selfish reason also for doing the open mics, where he's
Yeah.
like, I want to put together a team
Yeah.
where I want us to start doing concept comedy shows. And so he had and has a company called Weird Ass Comedy,
Yes.
where, not just stand up. He put people together to go and do sketch comedy live on stage, because the Comedy Store, London's
The comedy
iconic
store.
comedy
Yeah.
store, also opened in Mumbai. So we also got this brilliant stage all of a sudden. And so we'd be going out there like young green comics, just putting together sketch nights with 15, 16 sketches for
I've
live
actually watched you
audiences,
there.
or
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
improv nights, all of those things. And so the scene sort of bubbled over.
Yeah.
And that's again where I'd known Tanmay earlier, I'd known Ashish earlier, I'd known Khamba earlier, but that's sort of where also we all started working together and realized, hey, comedically we mesh also, and
Yeah.
we can start doing things together. And then AIB happened, and then the rest is
And
history.
then AIB happened, and then the rise
Yes.
and I should not say fall because it wasn't fall, but it was the rise
That's
and the
why
controversy.
rise and controversy and change, and that's life. But you know what? Wouldn't change a thing. Wouldn't take back a thing. Some
Yeah.
of the best years of my life, working with that gang of people. Still, some of my closest friends,
I mean, we're still
and
hopeful we're still going to see another roast again because the world needs to see it.
you know what? Fingers crossed. Never say never. I guess.
Never say never at all.
Never say never. Yeah.
And I mean, speaking of controversy, there is a lot of controversy and comedians being kind of put under the scanner a lot,
Mm-hmm.
especially in India.
Yeah.
How tough is it, and why do you think this is happening, and what can we really do to change it?
I think in terms of why it's happening is I think it's always in any culture when
Yeah.
there's say a new art form or just a new form of practice that pushes certain cultural boundaries that were set before, that pushes certain lines. Comedy in general is a very transgressive art form, right? Part of it is about crossing a certain line or saying certain things that people are thinking but maybe don't like saying.
Yes.
And Indian culture is a lot of times, and I know everybody who has large families knows we love to talk around subjects. We
Yeah.
love to imply without sometimes getting to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of times stand-up comedians do is we don't have time for this. We're just going to get right to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
And I think when that does happen, is you're naturally going to have cultural pushback that comes from there, and there's going to be like this sort of ebb and flow until you find this new normal. Also, the
Yeah.
simple fact is that, and this is not a controversial thing to say, if you just look at the laws in India, unlike say a place like America, which has absolute freedom of speech as their
Yes.
First Amendment, in India we do have something called restrictions on freedom of speech. So sometimes what will happen is certain people who want to shut you up will try and use those restrictions maliciously
Mm.
to shut you up, or they'll try and file legal cases. The good thing is that like sometimes the court also the courts do come out in our favor. The great thing is that a lot of young people push back against this sort of pushback from older people
Yes.
and be like, no, you say the thing that you want to say, we are with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's just part of the natural cultural push
But it
and
is
pull.
a
I wish
tough
it didn't happen.
environment, right?
100%. It is a
Yeah.
tough environment, but this is something that I've always believed is it is in the environments that are tough to do comedy, where it is essential that we must do comedy.
Yeah, laugh your way
It
through it
is,
if you
right?
can and make us all
Laugh your
laugh
way
while
through
you're
it.
at it.
The tougher the circumstances, the more important it is to have comedy in those circumstances,
Right.
and to sort of put forth arguments in a way that makes people laugh. Because see, the sneaky delicious thing about comedy is that's what a lot of people, and sometimes this is something that older people realize, and it scares them, is that sometimes the best way to get my argument across to you is to make
Is
you
the laugh.
laugh. Because when you start laughing, your defenses come down for a second,
Yes.
right? This is just a fact, and that's one of those
This is true,
beautifully
actually.
insidious
This is
things
true.
about comedy,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's something that does scare sometimes, older people in certain situations, especially people who would be more interested in maintaining the status quo.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. So yeah, it's tough, but it is, I think, 100% worth it every
Yeah,
day.
of course. No, and I want to say, I mean, because it's also so tough there, your London audience kind of gets to see you hopefully more often because now you can come here and
Oh
have that
hell
freedom of
yes.
speech and
Oh God, I'd love to. I would love to come perform more in London. It is absolutely one of my favorite cities in the world. I think it's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful place to
in the
be.
summer,
It's a
yes.
in the summer, yes, yes. Not the biggest fan of those 2:30 p.m. winter sunsets,
Yeah.
but I will try and schedule no shows in January,
Actually,
ideally.
that's when we need it most. Can you please schedule shows in
Okay,
January? We'll
cool,
pack out the
fair
stadium.
enough.
And
Done. Let's
speaking
do it.
of, your show in London, so what can the London audience expect from the show? When, like you said, V was here, and of course, his show was very much about Indians living abroad and the whole NRI culture. So, what can we expect from your show?
I think one of the things that's happened. One of the things that's happened to me and my generation is I think we were one of the first generations to be raised on like this. One of the first Indian generations, at least, to be raised on like this glut of pop culture. I was the first generation that got cable TV. I think you'll relate with this. We were the first generation that
Yes.
got cable TV. We were
Yeah.
the first generation that got the internet.
Yes.
Our brains changed, our worlds changed. So I think a lot of it is just me processing those sort of explosions and seismic moments in my life.
Yeah.
As a if V's work is about Indians abroad, my
Yeah.
work I think is about terminally online Indians, by which I mean me, and
So
just what my
millennials.
experience. So the millennial online experience, I think the millennial Indian online experience and what life has been like living
Yeah.
in a world where, as I was among the first generation of Indians to go from analog to digital,
Yeah.
and just that sort of change in life. So, and I promise it's not just nostalgia bait for the sake of it. I'm just trying to have fun and on stage
Can
process.
millennials bring mummy and daddy to the show or not?
Millennials can 100% bring mummy and daddy to the show.
Okay.
Mummy and daddy might have a few questions after the show, but I don't think there's anything in the show that I think that like you have to keep away from mummy and daddy
Okay.
as such. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, if you're listening and you've heard him say it, you can take your parents to the show. You can book the tickets now because it's not going to be completely scandalous, though a little bit scandalous because that much we
Little
have
bit,
to
little bit.
expect from
Gotta cross one. Gotta dart across the line and come back a little bit.
just a little bit.
So
And speaking
just a
of
little bit.
this generation and this online generation, how is AI impacting you? I mean, this is the conversation that I think in every interview for other jobs people are having and saying,
100%.
and what about
Um,
for your profession? Is AI impacting you? Are you using ChatGPT to write your jokes now?
no, I'm not using ChatGPT to write my jokes yet. I feel like it's one of those foundational shifts where it's 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 kind of like the internet all over again, right? Where if you were around in say 2001, you could have stood there and said, "Oh, I'm not going to use this newfangled technology.
Yeah,
I'm a purist. I'm a traditionalist. I'm analog or whatever." But eventually, you had to embrace it because that's the direction the world went in.
yeah.
So I think there's definitely a lot of pros and cons to AI. I think, like for example, more than me so far, I have no doubt that in future it's going to creep into my life in more and more ways. But I think the people that I worry for in creative professions, like in so many other professions, are people who are just starting out now. Because the
Hmm.
catch is right now, it's doing a lot of the entry level work. Right.
Okay.
So, like for example, in our creative fields, the sort of job I would have done 15 years ago, which is an entry level content writer or
Yes.
just an entry level filling up, those jobs AI is taking. So I
Yes.
think the danger is if you can't get an entry level job, there's no way you're going to jump into the field like fully prepared or at a mid level or high level job, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I worry about. I definitely worry in terms of more than my field. One of the things I worry about is we're just going to get to a place where it's going to become very difficult to identify the difference between what is real and what is a fake, right? And I
That's
feel
already
like once
happening, isn't
that
it?
happens,
Yeah.
right, exactly. And I think truth is something that's so important in comedy that once you live in a world which will essentially, and this is such a terrifying phrase to use, once we live in a world that is post truth and post facts,
Yeah.
what does that mean for a lot of creative careers and especially comedians? So so far small impact, but I'm still sort of waiting and watching
To what's going
because
to
I
happen.
don't think, yeah, I don't think the earthquake is quite done yet. There's
But
still
to your
tons
point,
of
then,
shocks
because I
now.
had a lot of young listeners saying, does Rohan Joshi do mentorships and how do we get in touch with him if we want to get? So, wouldn't, I mean, that would then be a very important part as a stand up comedian as well, right? To be able to do
100%.
that.
Like,
Because if they can't get entry level jobs, how do they
oh,
break in?
absolutely. Absolutely. Once, like 100%. So, which is why, when I do shows in Mumbai, etc., whatever, for opening spots, always happy to have younger comedians who need stage time. If there's writing gigs available, we're happy to have like young people come on. Obviously, paid gigs, none of this for exposure
Yeah.
stuff. So, wherever it is possible, of course, we're happy to help.
Yeah.
And I'm personally happy to help. But yeah, let's see where this goes
Okay,
overall.
London
Fingers
audience, you heard
crossed.
him say it. He's happy to help, so you can get in touch with him directly. Now, I have a few fan questions and audience questions that came in when I
Okay.
said on my show yesterday that I'm interviewing Mojo Rojo. And top of the
Okay.
list was Rohan Joshi, single or taken?
Single, very, very single. Very,
Okay,
very,
you
very
got
much
your
single.
answer,
Single
single.
and ready to meet people. 100%. Yes.
Okay, and someone has asked, describe your sense of humor in three emojis. If you had to describe it in three emojis, Rohan
I had to
Joshi.
describe my sense of humor in three
Yeah,
emojis.
basically
I
describe
think,
yourself.
okay,
So,
fair. Describe myself in three emojis. I
yeah.
think there's definitely that the emoji that has the two eyes going in different directions with the tongue sticking out because there's just an element of, oh my God, what? Then also, I think that emoji with the sort of hand on the face,
Yeah.
because, there's a little line crossing. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what did he say? Um, and hopefully, at least to a certain extent, that emoji that's laughing but also crying a little bit, because I would like to make you laugh that much. At least that is very much the hope.
Laugh till
Uh,
we cry, basically.
Laugh till you cry is the hope, and just hopefully none of those, red infuriated orange emojis. Let's try and keep those to a
Or
minimum.
the
This
brain
is what I
fry
put to my
emotion. That's
audience.
actually my
Or the
favorite
brain fry
emoji. The one
emotion. Yeah, that's
that is
I
okay.
feel like on a normal working day, the brain fry and the skull emoji get used a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Yeah.
yeah, let's hope that that doesn't happen with the comedy.
Okay, fine. And if you were stranded on an island with one stand-up comedian, Indian or international, who would you pick and why?
Oh, who would I pick and why? Indian or international? Okay,
Yeah.
if it's international, then I think somebody. I think my answer is Anthony Jeselnik. He's
Okay.
one of my favorites. He does some spectacular dark comedy. He's great at mining humor and insight out of very grim situations. And I feel like the two of us being stuck on a desert island is a pretty grim situation. And you'd
Yeah.
want somebody with you who could find the humor in that
Yeah.
100%. And
And make sure
Indian,
you
then,
record it on video and then send it to the rest of
oh,
us. Okay.
you know
Upload
what?
it.
Look, you know this, all right? Everybody knows this. A gathering of two men, the collective noun is a podcast.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this, right? A gathering of two men is called a podcast. I have no doubt that we would
We are
make
the
mics
podcast
out of
generation.
coconut trees. 100% we would be
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
from Indian comedians, I mean, of course, I would just love to be there with Tanmay because he's a friend. He's great. We would figure it out. Like
I
we
think we
would
need to
find a way
see
to
you
have
guys
fun with
back
it.
together. Really. I mean, when you were all together,
100%.
hilarious, and you and Tanmay especially. So, looking forward to another roast happening.
100%. And
Let's
also
make
just
that
tell your
happen.
audience to message Tanmay and just in general get Tanmay to do stand up on his own in London as well because he's building a show.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So
let's get
hopefully
that
next time
happening
you can come
also.
together. Then one segment you,
Hell
one
yes.
segment him, and the last one together.
That
I've
would
just
be
planned your
amazing.
whole show, but
Done. Fantastic. Thank you. That makes my job so much easier.
if stand-up comedy gets banned in India tomorrow, what would you do?
Oh,
As
stand
in,
up
what would
comedy
you do
gets.
for a profession? I think was the
What would I
question.
do for a profession if stand up comedy gets banned in India tomorrow? It's such a sad and cliched answer, but I'd probably move into advertising. um, I would probably move into advertising because I feel like that would be the next natural best use of
Or
this
an
skill set,
influencer, which you already kind of are.
which already kind of are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that I'd want to be like an influencer full time. Like I'd still want to very much have an avenue to write and
Okay.
express because before the performing, before any of that stuff in my life, I was a
You were
writer
writing.
first.
Yeah.
So I'd love to still be part of any kind of profession that values that. I'd obviously give films a shot, television a shot, but I think in terms of
You
paying the
have
bills,
given films a
advertising.
shot, haven't you? You've been
I've
in
been
many
in film,
Bollywood films.
but one of the things that I'd love to do is also write a film, like write a film or write a TV show, and that's something that I hope to do over the next couple of years.
Yes.
Because, like I said,
There was
the
Wake and
before
Bake.
everything,
Was
there
that, did
was
you
Wake and
write that?
Bake.
Yeah.
That was my stand-up special that I wrote myself, also.
Yes.
So the hope is to always, before the performance, before everything else, it begins with the written word.
Yeah.
For me, at least, still very much that generation.
Okay. So expression. You would get
Yes,
into something with
expression.
expression.
Yes.
And lastly, this is actually my question. Your thoughts on
Okay.
Labubu. Labubus or no Labubus?
Look, it's very straightforward, all
Yeah.
right? Everybody is allowed to like what they are allowed to like,
Yeah.
and we are allowed to dislike we are allowed to dislike you for liking what you like. But
Yeah.
also, if you are going to buy a Labubu, how about this? Why don't you just give me the money? All right. The total amount of value created in your life by that will be exactly the same. I mean, but also, you know what? Do your thing, guys, right? Like every generation has their own thing. If
Yeah.
this is the Labubu and Matcha generation,
Yeah.
who am I to stop
Do
you?
you have a Labubu?
I do not have a
You do
Labubu.
not have a
But
Labubu.
then
Do you
again, I
like
have
matcha?
enough action figures back here behind me.
Yes.
So who am I to judge people for their Labubus, right?
That's fine.
Not a matcha person either. I need my caffeine, like straight up black coffee into my eyeballs. That's how I
Okay.
like it. Are you a matcha person?
I'm a matcha person. I'm
All
recently a
right, there
matcha
we
person
go.
because actually
Okay.
I've tried to reduce coffee and to
Okay.
replace it, matcha is a very
That's
acquired taste. I hated it at first, but
yes.
now I've learned to like it, and I
No, it
don't
is
I
an
don't have
acquired
either
taste.
every day anymore. So
Oh, that's pretty good.
when I do,
Fantastic.
yeah,
That's
well,
fantastic. Well, it's an acquired taste. I don't know if it's a taste that I'm keen to acquire yet, but I can see that with just the explosion of matcha bars all
Well,
over
you're coming
Mumbai.
to London and there's lots of matcha places to stop by, so I'm sure you will
There
have
we
it.
go. Summer
So,
matcha.
Solo
It'll
Theatre,
happen.
Rohan Joshi, get your tickets now. And if you're not in London on those shows, he's also doing shows all over India, aren't you? Like you said, you had a
Yes.
show in Goa tomorrow.
I have show in Goa tomorrow. In July, I will be in Ahmedabad. I will be in Baroda. I will be in Kolkata. I will be in Bhubaneswar. In August, after London, I will be in Guwahati. I will be in Shillong. And in December, I will be in Australia. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
So now, all these shows before London, just do us a favor. Please don't say anything too controversial so that you still
In
make it
fact,
to London because we want to
if
see
I
you in
say
action here.
if I say anything controversial, in fact, I will have to spend more time in London. So more shows in London.
That will work out perfectly. Guys, if you haven't booked your tickets already, log on, get your tickets. This is Rohan Joshi, Mojo Rojo, coming to London exclusively for his first solo stand up show. First
Yes.
but not last.
First but not last. Fingers crossed.
Perfect. And can I just get a quick clip of you saying, Hi, this is Rohan Joshi, and you're listening to me on Sunrise Radio?
Sure. Hi, this is Rohan Joshi, and you're listening to me on Sunrise Radio.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to stop.
Thank you.